Hi, you're listening to Julie Taylor, and this is Julie and Company. Today, our guest is Lee Paterson. Lee is involved in different committees at the city, and I was curious to know more about the mechanisms at City Hall and the municipality to involve citizens like myself who are not elected but would like to have a clearer voice. So Lee, thank you so much for being here in studio.
Thank you for the invitation, and I must be very honest with you. If you have not yet come to a council meeting, you should, but there's a chance that you'll find it a little bit boring. I must be honest with you.
When are the committees meeting at the City Hall?
Yeah, so the town council meetings are usually the first Monday of the month, unless it's a holiday, at 7 p.m. at the community center, and all residents are welcome. There's an agenda that's published before, and there's 2 question periods, one at the top of the meeting and one at the end.
And that's when a person like myself who has a concern could come and voice her opinion,
yes,
or suggestion, or whatnot.
The only challenge is that often, if it's last minute, it could happen that there's information that you don't have before the meeting. So if you have time, check on the website for the notices. For example, when there's urbanism committee issues, the notices are there. So if you have a neighbor that's doing some work that might impact your property, well, that will be on the town website several days before the meeting. So you can either write to the town or speak to your councillor ahead of the meeting to get a heads up so that you're not like blindsided at the meeting what's going on.
So what I'm hearing is don't save it to the last minute because the decision's already down the pipeline.
Well, officially no, because anyone can change their mind, but there is a caucus before, and some have said before that the caucuses should be all open. Many towns in Quebec, including Lac-Brome, choose to do their caucuses behind closed doors, which administratively helps the process go a little bit faster. Mm-hmm. And it also helps to not monopolize town staff late Monday nights and to get information. Yeah. And by doing the caucus a week before, we're allowed to, if we need extra info, we have a week to get it.
Right.
So it allows us to be a little more efficient. But the night of is when the true decision is made.
Yes. Okay, so let's step back a little bit. Who is at the town meeting? Who's a player? How did they get there?
There's 6 districts in town of Brome Lake. So, for example, West Brome, Iron Hill is one district. Foster, Knowlton is split in 2 districts. So there are 6 elected councillors and 1 elected mayor, which is Richard Burkham presently. So there's 7 people at the town council that are representing the citizens. The director general, Monsieur Harel, is there. The town clerk, Owen Falcaro, is there. And occasionally we could have other staff if we have a specific project to be shown.
So these are the people who have taken the ordre du jour or the agenda or the, what would you call it in English?
Yeah, it's the agenda, and they have all the documentation that they've read up on before from committees and other administrative memos that allow the elected officials to make a decision.
Yes. And that decision, if it needs more information, they'll gather more information during the week. But by the time they go to the township meeting, the
council meeting, yes.
Thank you. They know how they're voting, and they're going to move along the agenda, what they need to decide on that evening to stay on track.
But it does happen that some councillors will say, hey, look, before the meeting, I know at the caucus I was in favor of this or was not in favor of that. I've had time to reflect and I'm changing my vote. But the law, the real vote is the night of. So to say that it's decided ahead of time there's a tendance, if we can use the French word. Yeah. We're leaning towards something, but new information could come to bear. And then we would...
So if, by example, I would like to have an opinion emitted at that time, I could go to the meeting. It might impact the final decision.
For sure.
But as a citizen, it's my duty to get the information beforehand if I want to respect the channels,
correct,
respect the functioning of the city, because you can't always turn it on its head for a personal point of view. And by doing so, I could be part of the process of decision making.
For sure. And you could either come as a citizen, you could also join a committee if you wanted to have a larger perhaps voice or
so
impact.
Before we go and talk about committees, as a citizen, I could take note and discover what the agenda is going to be that week on the website. Under which tab? Where do I look? In what framework does it work?
Yeah, so on the website, there's a calendar that has all the dates of the council sessions. If you click that, you can get a link to download the agenda. And also under the, in French, it's onglet, under the tab Municipal Affairs, they will say agenda, and then you can print out right from there or view on your computer
and
the
from
agenda.
what I understand, a week prior to that meeting, the decision information should be on the committee, councillors and other people making that decision.
For sure.
So my job would be 2 weeks out to bring extra information if I felt it was relevant to the people, and I would go through my councillor?
That's one option. You can either write directly to the town clerk,
Okay.
the mayor, or the councillor. So for sure, your councillor that represents your district. The councillors also have different portfolios. So on the website, under the councillor onglet.
Okay. So let's recap quickly.
Yep.
So if you have an information that's relevant to a decision that might be made on an agenda at a council meeting, you would need to move through these channels to be heard. And we're talking about either writing to the mayor, writing to your councillor, or connecting with your councillor.
Or the town clerk.
Or the town clerk.
Yes.
And that's all by email on the website.
Yes. Or you can call them. The phone numbers are there usually as well.
Thank you. All right, so we got that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the other groups that function within the decision-making at City Hall. So, committees.
So one of the main committees that is a town must have if it wants to issue minor derogations to its existing bylaws is the Urbanism Committee, which we call the CCU. The Comité Consultatif d'Urbanisme is its official name. On that committee, there's someone from each district.
So if we translated that, it would be the Urbanism Consultation Committee.
Yes.
Something like that.
Something like that. So there's business representatives, agricultural representatives, as well as someone from each district or someone representing each district.
How many members?
8 members plus a member of the administration that's on the CCU.
All right. And so each district must be represented.
Yes.
And it might overlap with a specialty?
No, the specialty will be another person.
Okay.
So another individual. So the business group, it's a business owner. So he doesn't represent also a sector. He was really just there for the business aspect.
Okay.
And same for agriculture.
All right. So back to the CCU.
Yes.
We have 8 members. Per district, you have a chair that you sit on the
Yep.
board, sit on the committees. You have to be elected, or can you be a citizen like myself?
Well, no, you would be nominated by the council. So if ever there was a vacancy, currently there isn't, but you would put in your name. There'll be a posting, or for sure, the best way to get the scoop on all this is to be subscribed to the town newsletter. So then you would see that there's a position available. You would give your motivation, and then the council would choose and nominate you to the committee for it's renouvelable, 1 year renewable.
Okay. And in English?
Lacbrome.ca.
Lacbrome.ca,
Yeah.
any language.
Yes, it works.
LACBROME.ca.
Yes.
Okay. People put that in your favorites because
hope
if
so,
you want
yes.
to be implicated and have a voice, there are many opportunities to be heard as long as you follow certain channels so that you impact positively with the information you have. So we're talking about committees. How many committees are there?
I would say that there's 5 or 6 committees that meet regularly, and then there's maybe another half dozen that meet irregularly depending on the wishes of the council. So the council will give mandates to their committees. They'll say, for example, well, we're thinking of looking at expanding the walking trails. Where should we go? So there's a committee set up for that. Public security, there's a committee for that. Tourism, culture.
Hi, would you like to be on the show? Do you have any questions or ideas you'd like to share? Go to julietaylor.ca and leave me a message. So there is a fairly organic relationship between the citizens and the elected officials.
Yes, and then from the elected officials goes the administration. So that's kind of how the circle works. So at the council meetings, we decide on the decisions, the administration executes, and then we come back and update the citizens where we are. The administration will report back to the council.
Okay, tell me about the administrative branch now.
So to avoid that each elected official goes and sees, for example, the loisirs or the public works, we funnel it through one channel, which is the Directeur Général. We have Monsieur Gilbert Harel, who's been here for quite a while. He will work with his team at Public Works, Fire Department, tourism, to execute the wishes of the council. So the council speaks by resolution. Those resolutions then get trickled down administratively, and then the population gets to judge the elected officials on how they did and what they asked the administration to do.
So who determines a budget and balances a budget?
So we have about a $22 million budget now in town of Brome Lake, which has grown quite a bit. The elected officials...
That's $22 million yearly or 22
Yes.
in the bank?
$22 million a year. We're lucky to have some important surpluses over the years. What has happened is the taxation is based on the municipal evaluations. We have been under budgeting what we call the welcome tax, which is not really a nice welcome, but it's each time there's a property that's sold, the town gets revenues from that. And so we make almost $1 million more than we expect to over the past couple of years. So we've been able to accumulate some nice surpluses.
Which are the ways that a city is filling its coffers? Because I've spoken with different groups for nonprofit who are involved in the environment directly, and some have been telling me there's a short-sightedness on some occasions, thinking that the tax will offer more revenues, but in the end, because you have more people using the infrastructure, it's a very short-term decision when in fact you're creating debt at the other end. Is this something that we're looking at here, or are there different sources of income and different streams of income that keep us viable and healthy?
Yeah, so it creates a bit of a challenge in municipalities like Brome Lake, where the municipal evaluations, because the real estate market is hot, you'll have lots of transactions, which will bring, as you say, decent revenue. We've had to lower the tax rate. We have one of the lowest tax rates, I think it's 47 or 49 cents per $100 evaluation, but that doesn't make it that in your pocket, even though your house is worth a lot, until you sell it, you won't. So that's a challenge. So the infrastructure and so on here in town of Brome Lake, we're not looking to do mass developments or mass housing. We don't want to double.
Okay, so you're not emitting permits to build in order to get more revenues. You're just saying that due to the hot market, we've had more revenues around the welcome tax.
Correct. So what we have to do now, thanks to the housing policy that we looked at, there's a clear shortage of dwellings for young families and for seniors that want to leave their home. And I'm not talking necessarily seniors' homes, but like condos, the Colebrook project in the village of Knowlton that's been mentioned often. In the urbanism plan that we're undertaking shortly, those are questions that we're going to chat with the residents to say, well, these vacant lots that are able to be built on, what kind of housing do we want there specifically?
So there's going to be kind of sondage.
There'll be open meetings and there'll be documentation. We've already done some legwork with the housing policy so it can be scary, the word densification, because you don't want to have these huge skyscrapers and stuff like that. That's not where we're going. But we have to maximize, as you said, to keep costs lower. If we already have water and sewer in a certain district, we have to maximize the building around of those to a respectable amount. And so that may include having to build a little bit higher and a little bit more dense to have more people per square foot. But we're not looking at huge developments in the short term to boost revenue because, as you say, if we welcome 10,000 new young families, they'll want an arena, a pool, things like that will be very costly and won't fit. So we want to keep a quiet vibe.
Yeah, a quiet vibe. And let's talk about that. Is it necessary to have an indoor arena in Knowlton if we have 3 outdoor arenas?
Well,
there are some choices that families make to be in a more rustic environment. And it's not about having all the conveniences at the cost of the choice of living in a village.
For sure.
And I think as long as this conversation is being had, you can drive 20, 30 minutes and have an arena, perhaps towards Massé-Vanier, or I'm not sure exactly where the infrastructures are, but again, choices are made and you can't cater to everyone. Are we preserving the clientele we want to have? There's an old adage that says, build it and they will come. Mm-hmm. Are you being mindful of what you are building so that you're drawing the right clientele?
Yes, well, those are things that we have to look at in the urban plan, but I agree with you 150%. For example, if you live in Lac-Brome or in Bolton West, it's most likely that you need a vehicle to get around. So we get pressure from central towns like Cowansville and Farnham to say, hey, we should have shuttles and so on. But those are huge costs. So there's going to be an interesting debate over the coming years. Do we have a shuttle for just 2 people, or do we do car sharing, which is starting to develop in the area?
There is something in our current village and region that is sturdy and solid and resilient and resourceful. I would believe that in the spirit of volunteering and guaranteeing this lifestyle and this way of life, which came from, we know, loyalists, the idea of organizing, self-organizing, and doing the car sharing is a more natural path. Again, to calling in the clientele we want.
I agree with you 100%.
Preserving our lifestyle.
Yes, and to take maybe small changes instead of huge steps. I think if we look at the infrastructure here in town of Rome Lake, once we get the new fire hall, which is slated for 2025, 2026.
Do we know where it's going?
We're in a process to acquire land near the Passerelle des Mousses on, is it Passerelle des Mousses?
Yes, it is.
Yes, on Victoria Street.
Yeah.
Yes, that the land currently belongs to the duck farm. We hope to have a win-win agreement with them. If not, we may have to expropriate some land.
I'm thinking there's the community center.
Yes.
Passerelle des Mousses.
Yes.
And then there's a little bit of land before the street.
Yes.
Or is that where there's an older property, a big property that was white with yellow shutters?
So it would be between the Passerelle and
That's not a lot of room.
We need more length than we need access to the road.
Would there be things put in place so that the children wouldn't be distracted or impacted negatively? I know it's positive for children to see big trucks and shiny trucks, and I get it. But is there a way to preserve the lifestyle and the current peace around there?
For sure, that those are all things that are going to have to, because we haven't secured the land yet as the day that we're speaking, but those are all things that have to be taken into consideration, yes.
So how would I know that they're taken into consideration?
So,
at what time would I be involved to talk about this?
So when we adopt in the coming months the plans for the new fire hall, and when we give out the contract to build it, that's when someone that's concerned about it.
Before then, you can't give out plans to build it and it'd be considered, no?
You're right, but because it's being considered, like if you had said, well, what color is it going to be? Because I know that they're going to be considering it, they would explain it then. But if you were concerned that it wasn't, you're right. You should send an email to your councillor as soon as possible to say, these are the concerns I have. Please, could you get back to me as to what mitigation things will be put into place for not just the daycare, but the other.
And can we see what the plans look like before the contract goes out?
For sure. Yes.
So that would be now.
The plans aren't ready, but yes, you should raise your hand to say those are things that concern me. How do I stay up to date with that?
Okay. And which councillor? My councillor?
Yes, or the one in charge of public security, or the mayor, the town clerk, Mr. Falcaro.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're talking about, what were we talking? Administration.
Yes.
And the structures in administration that work with the elected officials and all the ways in which we can be involved.
Yes, if you're looking for another exciting outing, there's the MRC Brome-Missisquoi, which regroups the 21 municipalities in the area. They also have a public meeting once a month. I'm not sure of the date. It's on a Tuesday or Wednesday night.
So Lac Brome being one of the 21.
Yes. So the Mayor Burkham is at the table with the 21, and then they look after the things that are under their umbrella. So a lot of environment issues, relationships with the Sûreté du Québec that we pay now over $2 million a year. So that's where a lot of discussions on regional dossiers happen, and those meetings are also open to the public.
So the regional dossiers are decisions made by elected officials beyond the municipal.
Yes.
Okay. And so there's kind of an ordre du jour there coming down to the MRC being represented by our mayor of the town of Brome Lake.
Yes.
And decisions are made. It's kind of the same structure, just removed.
Yes. So, for example, when we look at road grants for paving and rebuilding of dirt roads, a lot of the money will come from Quebec through the MRC. Yeah. So we need a plan d'implantation, so all the towns get together and build their plan. And so, for example, we were hoping that Fulford Road, which is in badly need of being repaved, it was slated to get funds, provincial funds this year, but it did not. And so we go through the MRC to argue that point.
I see.
So that's
where you try to get a piece of the envelope.
Yes.
Okay. You're represented to get some funds trickled down to our particular area.
Yes.
And then its allotment is with the town council? Is that where it gets sorted out? We're talking about budgets, for example,
Yeah.
or revenues from the town.
So I would say more than 90% of the revenues are from taxation, from real estate transactions, or the regular tax bill that you, and then the other 8 to 10% are grants. So, for example, the federal government, the post office, doesn't pay taxes. If the province has infrastructure here, they don't pay taxes, but we get an amount. They don't pay regular taxes, but we get an amount, what's called in lieu of tax. So that's another portion of revenues that we get. Fines, urbanism fines if people don't follow the rules, if you pay your taxes late. So that's where the majority of the funds go out. The MRC, where funds, we give what's called in French a cut-part. So our portion is about $660,000 this year. So we have almost $3 million that out of the $22 million that does not directly impact residents. It goes out for the police, for the economic development, the MRC. I think we have to be mindful in the coming years of how that money impacts the residents of Town of Brome Lake. So it's something important.
You're an elected official.
Yes.
How many years now?
2013, I believe, was the first time I was elected.
Because we're talking about an organic relationship with the people, what the needs are, being that voice at the city council. You've done many things. You did radio.
Yes, in French at M105 in Granby. I also was a volunteer with the fair groups, Brome Fair. I also worked for the Association of Fairs. I was a part-time fireman here in Lac Brome for 25 years. So community organization, that's kind of what led me to municipal politics, because you're able to...
It wasn't the money.
No. So this
breakdown.
So the salary for a councillor is about $14,000 a year, plus there's about $5,000 in expenses that are allotted.
So is it 14 plus 4?
Yes.
Okay. Now that's almost poverty line, I think, in statistics. So how many hours must you dedicate? I know that you always have your hat on and your ears on, but how many hours must you dedicate to this particular job while, funding your lifestyle at another job potentially?
Yeah, so that's probably one of the reasons. If you look in throughout Quebec, most of the elected people are retired. So there's few that are able to do both. Here in Town of Brome Lake, we do have Shelley Judge, who's also working and able to juggle both, myself. And you're spending at least a week, the equivalent of 8 to 10 hours a week of reading documents, answering phone calls, emails, following up, staying up to date as to what's going on, not just in your municipality, but in those around. So yeah, it's people that are 100% volunteer in organizations can say, oh, well, at least you get paid for, yes, so there is financial contribution, but the challenge to getting more people involved is that if you don't have resources to fund your lifestyle, it's hard to get involved in the municipal world.
I see that.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it for the money. We talked about that. What motivates you? Because you've been doing it for a long time now.
Yeah, I got involved initially because there was some turbulence at the council. I found as a citizen, I would go to council meetings and found that there was a lot of bickering and decisions didn't seem to be moving along. So I said, well, rather than complain about it, I'll try and be part of the solution. And that's why I presented myself and got elected and have stayed. But it's the little things that, like, for example, we forget, but Trestle Cove, along the bike path by the beach, those realizations are the big ones. But you also see, like, we're working on maybe repurposing a vacant building currently into social housing. So that won't be me, myself, that did it, but it's thanks to putting certain people together and talking, and then the administration will probably run with that. And then in 3-4 years, you'll see the fruit of that. So you're like, oh, I was a mini part of that whole thing. Compared to certain other implications, you see it, some projects takes longer, but certain things you see right away. So it's very motivating, and so that's why I stay involved.
You said this is not the kind of business to be in to make money and to go out of your way, extra out of your way for an improved quality of life to your citizens and your electorate is something that has to come from the heart.
For sure.
There was a time I think the clinic was going to lose.
Yeah, so that was something that I wouldn't have probably seen coming if I wasn't involved in municipal politics. We lost for a short time the blood test and certain other services we were not able to get back, but a large number, I think we got 1,800 or 1,900 people to sign a petition that I delivered to the organization that manages the hospital services here. And with other people, volunteers, they're back.
You made a case.
Yeah.
Like a strong case.
Yeah. I mean, they had to know. It wasn't a surprise to them, but I think they saw that in other parts of Quebec where they did cut the service, the citizens just
let it slide.
The challenge we were able to put forward here is because the average age is much higher than elsewhere. Going to Cowansville, going to Bromont was challenging. So that's why they did bring back certain services. We hope, being vigilant, we hope that they don't cut them again. But those are some of the challenges. You can't just give up right away. Mm-hmm. So,
what would your advice be to citizens to be implicated in a way that can guarantee this lifestyle in 10 years? Where are the challenges currently?
So for sure, the urbanism plan, you only redo your urbanism plan not every year, right? So maybe every 5, 6, 7 years.
What does it cover? Urbanism, zoning?
Zoning,
services?
bylaws. Where will you have water, sewer? Where will you have developments? What type of architecture do we want? We're about to go to tender to work with some experts to say, well, for example, multi-unit apartments, what should they look like? What kind of style are we looking for? What kind of architecture? And for the downtown core of Knowlton, with the museum, with the churches.
So that's all part of the urbanism plan?
Yes.
And that's now being determined, and it's going to impact the city forever. It's going to be implicated for the next 6-8 years, but it's going to impact it forever.
So someone that's interested in
we're all interested now
in getting involved.
Listen.
So as I said earlier, joining if it's not done, the newsletter, the monthly newsletter.
lacbrome.ca.
Yes, you can register there under infolettre in French and newsletter in English, and then you'll see if you're on social media. Also, the town updates often.
So you're an insider, right? When is it going to be too late to have a say? When are we going to start seeing what decisions must be made about the plan, not post-plan, but about the plan?
Yeah, I would say that within the coming months, for sure, there'll be enough visibility that someone can say, oh, I see. If they don't really want to...
And the source of that visibility is on the...
Website's always the base.
And in any case...
Yes.
Write to the town clerk,
yes.
write to your mayor,
yes,
grab
or your
councillor. Ask him when to be involved, what's going on.
That's the best
These
time.
are things we shouldn't shy away of.
No, because it has an impact on your livable space and your quality of life, for sure.
Lee, thank you so much for your time with us in studio, and I appreciate it, and I hope I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Bye.